Hi, welcome back to the next episode of Old House DIY. In this episode we're going to be tackling this fireplace. We're going to have to take it off, fix it, renew the tiles, see what else is going on, clean out any build-up of soot in there, and then reattach it to the walls. So let me bring you in for a closer look at some of the details. First is this mantle. It's got to come off. It's cracked all the way through here, both sides. What we'll probably do is run a multi-tool along here and try and lift it up. Then it'll be take the insert out. These tiles are definitely modern, so we'll be changing those. And then it'll be the side columns. These are normally fixed in with screws in here that are then plastered over. So it's going to be a fairly messy job to get it off. First step is going to be to try and break this paint or plaster seam up here. For that I'll use a multi-tool. On this top edge it's just caulking on the roof. Let's see if any of these move yet, shall we? Yeah, it moves. Maybe I can work out what's holding it now. Nothing, just plastered in. There we go. There's the first one off. Let's try this other half now. Yep, just as easy. Very good. So these are only held on by gravity and maybe a bit of plaster. Now, yeah, there's some remains of old lime mortar behind here which was used to bed it in. I think I'm going to go and get a bucket and clean down some of this, and then the next piece out with this piece. We're starting to get see a sense of the way this is actually held to the wall here on this side. We've got a hook that's driven in the wall and then driven into the stone. There's also something here which may be where this pin originally went to. We've also got this detail here which helped hold on this bolster here. So we'll have a look to see if it's the same this end. It looks like it, but there's the plaster is better on this side. And then I'll also cut this centre beam out. So let's start and look at the centre beam next. Just clean this metal pin up. I'll see if I can gently prise it up. Yeah, it's coming up, and the whole pillar is now coming loose because of it. So it's literally mounted at the bottom and then pinning at the top. There we go. Move this away carefully because it's heavy. Now I'm going to have a crack at getting the fireplace insert out. I suspect this might be quite dusty, so this is going to be on with the dust mask and the dust extractor, so forgive the noise. So I'm starting to clean up now. Huge amount of debris, fire debris, soot. All of this will be making these salts problems worse. There is a original steel lintel, but it looks like somebody backed up the top of the inside of the fireplace at some stage with bricks to sort of fill between here and here when they put this surround in. So I was just starting to take the bricks out and I noticed this in here and I thought, oh, maybe there's some sort of lintel or support structure to hold these bricks by design. But no, it is actually an old door strap. If you look at that, it's got the forged heart on the end and a roll pin. Whether it's a door hinge or an old gate hinge, I don't know. It will definitely get kept. I'll just keep working our way through here. We've also got some sort of tile in here, broken tile. I don't know whether that's original. We'll start seeing if we can. We've also got some casting numbers here on the top of the fireplace, so maybe we can find out a bit more about the surround with a Google. So let's clean up and then we'll come back and reassess. We're all cleaned up now, and let's have a bit of an investigate. We've got two steel bars acting as lintels here, joining into these columns. These columns are not bonded in here, they're just butted up, so it makes me think this is a new insert. When I say new, I mean sort of pre-cement still, because this was all made with lime. Good news, but it means it's modern than the original house. But here you can see a tile similar to this fragment I found earlier, same square edge profile. So it shows dodgy builders have been around a long time already. As we're clean, I'll take this opportunity to go inside and have a look as well. So, a bit's still not cleaned out, there's a bird's nest. But interesting, up here, it looks like there's a lintel which would go above these two courses here. So somewhere above these two courses is a large stone lintel. So that was probably the original opening. This has been infilled at one stage, and then this has been infilled again. Just shows how houses evolve over time. I'm not going to remove this lintel. I'm not going to open this fireplace out. We're going to restore to similar to as was. Next thing, we're going to clean all this lot off, more vacuum it, wet it down, and then we'll start filling back in here to fit the fire surround with bricks and mortar, lime mortar. I've repaired some of the pointing. I'll just give you a quick look. It's not very pretty, but there is no space in there. I put some of the missing bricks back. Now I'm going to work on repairing these pillars here. I've got to put another course of bricks in, then I'll put my lintel in, then I'll put two more in, and then I'll let it set up. We're back at the welding bench now. I've laid out on here, you can just barely see some yellow marks, the spacings for the main brick pillar, the upstand, the main brick pillar, so we can make a lintel to go over the top of the fireplace. That's what this is. It's a bit of old, I think it's old electricity pylon I had lying around, so I shall weld this up and then we'll have a lintel to fit over the top of the fireplace opening. We've got it all clamped up now. I'm going to give it some good heavy tacks to hold it in place, and then we can weld it fully. Right, last weld. There we go. I know TIG's not the fastest, but it's what I've got, so it's what I use. So we've raised the side pillars up to the right level now. Now it's going to put the lintel in. Don't worry, it is all being done in line. Here's our lintel. We've got some holes in it so the cement will work its way through and help bed it in. We don't actually need that much underneath, just a foam bed. Make sure it's nice and central. check it against the fireplace insert. There we go. Lovely. This will all get filled in when we render. Next course of bricks, and then we'll let it set up. We've got our lintel in. We'll leave it set for a while. Fits the fire surround nicely. We've brought it up a course on either side. I've started dubbing out some of the bigger holes. I've got another course of bricks in here. Then we'll start closing up the arch. Then I'll have to worry about how to fill in this lot. I think some more bricks might need to come out. But that's a good start. We'll give it some time to set up so we've got something to secure to build up from, and we'll keep going. So it's set up where I put the lintel in. Now I'm just going to brick it up. There we go. Tidy up some of the joints. It's not the flattest, but it's hard work wedging them in. So these are in real nice and tight. So all the weight up here will get supported down through what was a gap, down right into the floor. Nice strong lintel here. This will all get plastered over when I replaster this wall, but we're structurally safe again now. Next, get some render on all of this wall, but that's part of another big project for replastering this room, so please stick around for that one as well. Let's fix this nasty surprise from plastering. We've got the brick face cleaned up. I've cut a new brick to suit, so we'll just bed it in with some muck. There we go, that problem's fixed. So we can get on with plastering the main wall now. We've got the metal fireplace surround and the fireplace insert. Now what I've got to do is clean all the paint off. First I'm going to give this a go with some peel away. I'm doing it outside so I can pressure wash it afterwards. So safety gear and a big tub of peel away. Peel away is a poultice type stripper. It's a caustic base. You have to apply it, leave it for 24 hours and then scrape it off, wash it off and neutralise it. It's a thick gloopy stuff, but over time it works really quite well. we've got the poultice on, now we apply this. It's like a wax-proof paper. It helps stop it drying out. There we go. Now I'm just going to wrap this all up and leave it outside for the day. Well, overnight. It will get scraped off tomorrow morning. So we'll let the poultice sit for 24 hours and we'll come off, and then we'll scrape it off, high pressure wash it off, and then wire wheel it, and then we'll have a look at the paint. And I suspect we're going to have some steel repairs to do on this casting, so we'll have a look at that next. This has been resting for 24, 36 hours. I did it yesterday morning, it's following afternoon. Now I need to take the plastic off and then scrape all the peel ply poultice off. So it also rained overnight, but it doesn't matter because this stuff needs to stay wet, stay damp. If it gets wet it washes off, but staying damp doesn't hurt. So I just take the plastic off and then I will start scraping up the peel ply paper with the poultice underneath. Just scrape it off. And then what I will do is I will come back and I'll actually pressure wash this whole thing, because this stuff is water soluble. So it's a really good way to get into all the nooks and crannies. So we've got it all wiped down, stripped down. Now I'm going to give it a good pressure wash. Then I'll make sure I neutralise anything and then give it a good wash away. Now we've actually got to focus on the stonework. These were originally once painted. They're going to be painted again. So basically it's a good clean and scrape to get any paints, flakes, clean out the nooks and crannies so the details show again. But the biggest problem is this and this. This is the actual mantelpiece and it's cracked here. So we're going to have to find a way to repair that. So let's get on with the cleaning and then we'll have a look at the fixing this back together. Scrape all the nastiness. Well, that's cork. What's looks like silicon or something. I don't know. Horrible bodge after bodge. Let's get it cleaned up. Just giving them a gentle scraping with my favourite carbide scraper. Let's just keep it getting all the cork and squaring up the edges nicely. So I just take my time, work my way around. This is the big problem. This is the mantelpiece. Snapped clean through here. So what I'm going to do, I've got them on a flat board and I've got some repair resin, so I'm going to glue this back together again. It's already been cleaned, and glue it back together again. But also what I'm going to do is, so it doesn't crack anymore, is I'm going to grind in some slots, put these full of holes so we've got a nice key, and then bed these two strips of angle iron in all the way along, so these will give strength to the whole structure. So I've cut these to length. Now I better go and drill hundreds of holes. I've all marked up where my reinforcing bars are going to go. I've got a wide mortar rake bit on this and I'm just going to slot it out so this will drop in. this is what I'm using. It's a Metra set. It's a concrete repair resin. Sets really hard. This is a sandstone colour, so hopefully it will blend in, but it doesn't matter, it's going to get painted anyway. So what I'll do is I'll move the joint apart, fill it, press it back up, clamp it against the straight edge, and then I'll work on these two pieces. We make sure we fill up the big groove. We want it to stick to the sandstone and squeeze through the holes. What I found was it helps to fit the piece, and that will squeeze it in. Right, now fill it up again. You'll see it squeeze up out of all the holes, and then just take and then scraper to blend it in. We'll clamp it up to make sure we're nice and square. Now we'll let that cure. The box says 1 hour, but we'll leave it to cure for probably overnight, and then we'll come back, turn it over and see how we've done. Lots of the old elements on these fireplaces were held together with pins and dowels and plaster of Paris. This, I guess you'd probably call it a corbel, has come off. It's been repaired once before, that's why this screw's in here, but I'm going to reuse that. It's an old screw, and it fits well. So as I said, they're held together with plaster. This screw's actually plastered in, plaster of Paris. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this hole, put a light skim here, then bed it down and clamp it. Beauty about plaster of Paris, once it's set, we'll be able to clean off these edges. Then we have to come in here, and there's a pin that goes across from a hole in here to a hole in here to help clamp it all off. So let's make up some plaster of Paris. Not very much, it won't take much. The beauty about these paper cups is you can pour the stuff. So I'm going to pour some into the hole, and then just pour it over the area. And this will all squish out. Put just a couple of clamps on. Square at the top. Now I'll just scrape off the excess. I'll clean up a bit more, and then we'll leave it to set up. So we rebonded this cornice on. Now we need to join it. This is how they're joined originally, with a spike in, and then this filled in with plaster of Paris. So I made the spike. Now what I'm going to do, make sure this is stood quite nice and upright, so it will sit, and then I'm just going to pour in my plaster of Paris. I use this foil as somewhat of a damming material. Actually, I'll take that out so I can make sure I get some in the holes. Put that back in. and then just pour over the top. The beauty about plaster of Paris is it will sand really nicely once it's gone off. Bit of a tap, make sure there's no bubbles in it. Right, and that will be gone off in 20 minutes, half an hour, but I'll come back and sand it flat before I fit it. Well, actually not sand it, what I use is a surf form because that cuts it really nicely. So we'll leave that before we get ready to fit it. We've got our first float coat on. It's still nice and wet, so I'm going to offer this up, then I'll butter the back, set it home and dry these hooks down. These hooks, a bit like the arrangement here, go into a hole in the top of the column and they hold it all secure. Not terrible. Very good. Back at the top. Check the measurements for the inserts. Very good. Yeah, very good. Check. Good. Good. Very good. So we've got the insert in. I realised because of the pillar block it's got to come down from the top, which means it's got to go in now because this top piece here sits on top of it. So I fiddled around, this top piece is going to go in now. I remember this top piece was a really bad fit when it came out. And we're tight up here and we're tight up there, so it can't come towards it anymore. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to fill these with plaster of Paris when I fill these top locks. So we'll get this in. We'll also try and work some plaster down behind as well to make sure it's bedded to the wall properly. There we go. So that's in. Now I'll mix up some plaster of Paris to fill in the joints. So as we did to reattach this, we've got our metal pin in the wall, the original metal pin, and then I'm just going to fill in this recess plaster of Paris. This has the advantage, it can easily be removed when you come to take the fireplace out without doing any damage, and it sets really quickly, which makes it great for this sort of application. Give it a poke around, make sure it's in there nice and deep. Bit of a smooth out. Going to do the other side. Right, I've got this level with a bit of plaster of Paris already, and I've got the ends of the mantelpiece marked on, so let's get some plaster of Paris on. It is running everywhere, but it doesn't matter because it scrapes off really nicely. Let's get the mantelpiece on now. Oh, there you go, heavy. Careful not to flop it into position. Give it a wiggle to work it in. There we go. Fireplace is all set up now. Now I'm working on retiling. We've decided to go for slate mosaic with a black grout that hopefully they'll look better than the horrible white large format tiles that were put in the 80s. I'm also going to do an arch to match the insert over the top, which is traditional with tiles. So to do that I'm going to have to do a lot of cutting and I'm going to have to plan out how to do it. So to do that, as with anything not square, I've made a template out of cardboard. So what I'll do is I'll mark some lines on that and work out exactly where I've got to cut the tiles before I then stick them in place. The most difficult thing about tiling is working out where you start and making sure everything fits so you don't sort of tile yourself into an odd corner. So the paper patterns help me to lay out really well how I want them. So what I'll do is I will bond on the surround, and then once that's set up I'll start cutting these to suit across here, and then I'll come back and fill these in afterwards. So let's get some preparation down and mix up some tile adhesive. We've got our line marked out, so what I'm now doing is fitting up and cutting the tiles to follow the arch, and then work this way, and then I can figure out what we're going to have for our keystone in the middle. This is a centre line, so these will actually be spaced out a bit. I've got this angle set off the edge of the fire. I've got this angle set by splitting the difference. Now I just need to work my way along. Now that one's pretty good there, so I'll call that 8. Then I need to set another one next to it, and there we have a gap, so we will need to adjust this joint here. So what I tend to do is just split the difference, so a little bit off this edge, a little bit off this edge. Now I'll go and cut that on a wet saw. Then we just cut the tile to suit on a wet tile saw. This is a smooth bladed diamond tile saw, so it doesn't chip the tiles. It gives you a nice smooth edge. It cuts through this, even though they're thick, cuts through this slate really well. Apologies for the noise. Got all my pieces cut now. Now I bond them on. I've got some black flexible tile adhesive. We're going to black grout it as well. I'll put the middle one in first, then I'll put the two ends, and then I'll space them out. So there we go. I'll let that set up a little bit, then I'll trim out the excess cement. Then when it's all dry, I'll fill in these. When that's dry, then I'll grout it. I've got a grout mixed up. We've got a grout trout, and we'll just work it in to the gaps. There we go. We'll let that set up for half an hour, then we'll give it a first sponge off, then we'll let it set up some more, give it another sponge off, and we'll give it time wash until we've got rid of all the excess grout and that we've got no blooming on the tiles, because it's important to make sure you wash it off, otherwise you'll get the grout left on the tiles, not just between them, which is where you want it. Final few steps. Now the grout's all gone off, all cleaned up. Now I'm just going to finish the metal surrounds. I could paint these, but this one in particular is very close to the fire, so I'm going to use a traditional stove black, which is a graphite based paste. It goes on, it dries by the fire. It will also air dry, so we'll give this a coat here. Either a Scotch cloth or a microfiber pad. I think I'm going to go with microfiber first of all, because this one's quite smooth. Where it's rougher, I might switch to the Scotch cloth. The finished article. If you remember back in the beginning, we had to strip this wall completely, fix some holes, put a new lintel in, rebuild a section of the actual wall. Then we took the fireplace off, fixed the mantelpiece. All the mantelpiece has been stripped and put back. We've then refitted the original fire surround and we've tiled that. It's all done. I think we may end up fitting a slate hearth over the top as we go, but that'll be another video. Then next it's going to be on to some pigmented lime wash. I hope you found this fireplace series interesting. Please, if you did, think about a subscribe and a thumbs up, and stick around when I get on to the lime washing of the walls. Thanks for watching.